Hi. Hi. Good afternoon. It's Marcy. I'm going to read for you today another portion of my memoir, Permission to Land, Searching for Love, Home, and Belonging. This particular section is tentatively titled Catfished. I don't know if you're familiar with the colloquial term catfish, but in this era of online dating and online personas, I guess catfish seems to mean that the person that you think you're meeting on the other end of your computer screen turns out to be drastically different from the person you meet in real life. It's sort of false advertising. At its heart, it's heartbreaking and trust breaking and engenders discord and anger and betrayal and so on. And so unfortunately does this section of my memoir. So I'm going to read and hopefully you'll listen. We may be interrupted by a cat or two because they seem to be quite frisky today. Okay, so it's called Catfished. After I had gained a little distance from my divorce, I decided to put my newfound sense of patience and After I had gained a little distance from my divorce, I decided to put my newfound sense of self and patience to the test and begin dating. Ready to try again, I created an online dating profile, which was hard to do in my 40s. Actually, because I wanted to maximize my reach, I created profiles on several sites. Scratching my head, I tried to figure out what to say. What facts about myself were important? How could I appear to be as attractive as possible? I used my skills from my public relations days and painted a clear picture of who I was, and hoping for the best, pressed enter. My profile was live. Now all there was to do was wait and see who responded. The last time I seriously dated was in my 20s. This was a whole new ball game now. That got me thinking, what did I want in a man? In my 20s, my stepmother suggested I create a list of characteristics that I wanted in a man, the preferences and the deal breakers. It was a fun exercise then and eventually led me to my ex-husband, but now I was in my 40s and my 20-year-old list was woefully out of date. It was time for a new one. One night, after my kids were tucked quietly into their beds, I sat at my computer and started thinking about what I wanted, what I needed, and what were my deal breakers. I pictured myself being deliriously happy with some new man, and I described him. Here's my list. It's pretty comprehensive. I'm going to read it, but I'm also going to tag it on the bottom of this video. What I want in a man: taller than me, comparable to my age, at that point in my mid-40s, educated with at least a college degree, if not a graduate degree, a good job that earns him enough money to live comfortably and responsibly, no children under the age of my youngest child, has time for relationship in his life, willing to make time to see each other, good, quirky sense of humor and appreciates my silly side, generous with his time, energy, and kindness, lives somewhat nearby to make building a relationship and being in each other's lives possible, has been in a long-term relationship or previously married, a positive attitude toward life, doesn't get overly angry easily and takes things in stride, patient, flexible, and kind, good listener who really cares to hear what I have to say, likes and needs physical declarations of affection, hugs, kissing, cuddling, PDA, easy to talk to, easily communicates his emotions and dreams, wants to share who he is and eager to learn about me, willingness to travel and explore new places, active and desires to do activities that we both enjoy, physically healthy and reasonably fit, healthy appetite for sex and desire to explore racy and kinky activities, strong hands with willingness to give and receive massages, has a spiritual side but not overly religious, has a relationship with his family and or has nice friends, supportive of me and my pursuits, music, painting, writing, etc., cleans up after himself and keeps a reasonably clean home, cooks decently well and eats well, has his own hobbies, creative outlets, and interests that give him pleasure, balance, and pride, doesn't have a large dog, doesn't smoke, doesn't drink excessively, and is sincerely interested in building something meaningful with me and sharing our lives together. It's a big list. I received a lot of interest from a wide variety of men, which buoyed my self-esteem, but little else. They were not who I was looking for. I kept thinking of Star Wars. These are not the droids you're looking for. Of all the men who messaged me, the best of the lot was a tall, handsome man I met on JDate. It was a direct, honest, sensitive, and sexy post. He proclaimed to have most of the qualities I was looking for because I had put the list in my profile. and a 1,000-watt smile to boot. I messaged him flirtatiously. He replied. Before long, we were in a fluid conversation that made our meeting that Friday night a foregone conclusion. We met at a restaurant and sat together in a far corner of the dimly lit leather and chrome bar. The heat between us was evident from a mile away, and we both had trouble keeping our hands to ourselves. He was a lawyer from a town 15 minutes from where I lived. He worked in Manhattan, was divorced, had 2 daughters who were a couple of years younger than my daughter. I was smitten. Over the next couple of months, we met in all sorts of restaurants, bars, and hotels between our 2 homes and began a very passionate relationship. His passion for curvy women, ample breasts and booty, made me appreciate my own body like I never had before. Where I had been critical of certain aspects of my figure, he made me feel more comfortable and sexier. He took me out of my comfort zone and made me feel alive for the first time in a very long time. Soon after getting involved with him, I started to catch on to some odd things that he would say that seemed to contradict previous things he had told me about himself. Some things were not adding up. He had told me he was living with his ex-wife until they could sell the marital residence. Neither of them could afford to move out until this happened, but they weren't sharing the same bedroom anymore. At first, he told me they were very adversarial with one another, that they had a hard time agreeing on anything and fought almost every day. But then he told a story in which he and his soon-to-be ex-wife were sitting on their bed, talking with their daughters about school. My curiosity had been aroused. I thought they didn't get along. I thought they were adversarial. If I was going to have a conversation with my ex-husband about our children's school, it would not be sitting on my bed. Not even when we were still living together while disassembling our marital life would I have had a conversation with him while sitting on the marital bed. There was more. We were sitting in a restaurant one night and he was telling a story about something his kids said that was really funny, and he used the pronoun he. I distinctly heard it. He had 2 daughters. Why would he say he? And there were lots of little nuanced comments or slips that made me think there was something else going on here. Having been through the ringer with my divorce a couple of years before, I understood how challenging it all could be, especially with kids involved, and I let slide a lot more than I should have. It kept gnawing at me. I knew something was up, but I didn't say anything because I liked him so much and I was afraid that whatever it was would end our relationship. Then he let slip that he and his soon-to-be ex-wife went to a town planning board meeting together to apply for a variance for a fence for their house. That was why he had to cancel a date with me. He was explaining that they needed to make some improvements on the property to get it ready for sale as the divorce progressed. Logical? Maybe. But who knows? At this, I decided to listen to my intuition and do a little research. I Googled him, and there was nothing about him on the web. How could someone have no digital footprint at all? I looked at his law firm's website, and there was no mention of him in their Meet Our Lawyers page. I even called their offices to try to leave him a message and was told that no one by that name exists. I was on a quest, a mission. Planning board minutes are a matter of public record, and I easily found them on the town's website. I read through the transcript of the date in question and found out some very juicy and infuriating information. The only man with his first name to apply for a fence variance on that date had at that meeting had a different last name than the one he gave me. Then I Googled that name and instead found a Facebook page that showed me that he was still happily married to his wife, and they had 2 daughters and an older son. Further examination determined that he wasn't a lawyer at all, but an IT guy for a legal practice. I called that practice the next day, and in 3 seconds was connected to his work voicemail. I didn't leave a message. Naturally, I Googled his wife and found out that she was a local dermatologist who practiced under her maiden name. On her website was a picture of her family, him smiling with his arm around his wife, and all around them with beautiful glowing complexions were their 3 happy children. Wow, I had been catfished. I called him immediately and told him that I never wanted to see him again. He needed to delete my number. It was over. I told him of my research and my findings, and he grew very quiet for a moment. He didn't apologize. His only concern was whether I was going to tell his wife. He was afraid I would ruin his family and didn't seem to get the fact that if his life got ruined, it was entirely his fault. I didn't want any part of what would surely work out to be like a Jerry Springer episode, so I told him that as long as I never heard from him again, I would not tell his wife. She would never know any of this from me. About 10 days later was the date that he had previously told me he was going to have a garage sale at his house. Supposedly it was going to be a moving sale to clear out the kids' old toys and household items, etc. I decided that I would go, and I thought it would be a perfect way to torture and scare the shit out of him. The planning board notes had included his actual home address, which, by the way, was in a different town than he originally told me. So that sunny Saturday afternoon, I drove over there. I took a deep breath, and as casually as I could muster, I walked up to their gigantic and elegant Center Hall Colonial and wandered around their driveway and yard with the other browsers looking for what was for sale. I attempted to blend in with the other garage sale shoppers. After a few minutes, he noticed me milling around amidst a chatty group of browsers, and as we looked at items displayed on the curbing asphalt driveway. Through my sunglasses, I could see the look of panic drawn across his face. He walked over and addressed the whole group at once, trying to sound casual, but I knew it was forced casualness. Our eyes met, and he looked genuinely terrified. He had no idea what I was up to, and I'm sorry to say this indelicately, but I thought he'd shit his pants. I walked away from the group and began to talk to one of his daughters, who was helping out with the garage sale, about a game that was for sale. She was friendly, personable, and she answered my questions. She obviously had no idea who I was. She was just helping her family. I hoped that she would never learn what a scumbag her father was, and that what he taught her about women taught her about how women should be treated came from better examples than this. He walked over to us protectively, of himself, not his daughter, obviously checking on what we were talking about. He heard and saw nothing but conversation about a child's game. After a short while, I had enough of this charade, so I excused myself and left. I could feel his eyes following me to my car as he was obviously dying to know why I had come. I knew that my visit had thrown him into a tizzy and that I was able to torture him just a bit. I am not lucky I met him, but he's lucky that it was me who met him. I believe that there are things that his children should never know about him, and I had no intention of telling his little secret to his family. The most important part of a relationship is honesty, and therefore it is incumbent upon all of us to enter each relationship as honestly as possible. Online dating is fraught with dishonest people, so we must be prepared and skeptical. We must set firm boundaries and never be shy to ask a million questions. Somehow, men and women don't understand that falsely advertising oneself in an online profile is never going to yield a healthy relationship. But as I learned, that is not always what they're looking for, even if they say it is. It's important, as I learned, to be brutally honest with oneself about our feelings, observations, and expectations, and to be open with the people we are dating about too. Had I asked him about my suspicions earlier on, I might not have been so emotionally wounded by his betrayal, having confronted it earlier. I learned that I deserve more than I was asking for, and that I needed to be smarter in the future. Hopefully, you are smarter than I was then. Being catfished was not fun, but it does make for a great dinner party anecdote. Thank you for listening. Please heart, share, and comment. I'd love to hear from my readers or listeners. Please subscribe. Find me on Instagram. Find me on Facebook. MarcyBrockman.com. What'sUpMarcy.com. Join the blog. I'm around. I want to talk. Have you all been catfished? Any of you? I hope not. What are your online dating experiences like? I met a lot of guys and a lot of scumbags and a lot of people who lied and said nasty stuff to me, most of which I will account for in my memoir, Permission to Land. See you soon.